Hey everybody, I want to talk to you tonight about the parables of the Minas and the talents. And one of the things I wanted to address right up front is there have been a couple of abuses and some weird things that I've seen when it comes to these two parables. On the one extreme, you have people who condemn you, who say, if you don't do all the things, if you don't do absolutely everything, that's the one that gets you in trouble and you get kicked out the kingdom, and bad things happen. So that's the one side, and that's not really what they're talking about. That's an extreme. That's just rubbish. And I'll get into why shortly. The other thing that I've heard, which equally makes no sense, is people who look at this parable and they say, well, Jesus was under the law. And because he was under the law and we're under grace, we can just ignore everything he says. Really? Ignore what Jesus said because you think he's under the law? I mean, let's look at that for a little bit. Jesus is the Son of God. He is God the Son. He is God in the flesh. When he was here on the planet, Jesus had foreknowledge. He knew he was going to the cross. He knew he was going to die for our sins. Now, a wise man will go, I've only got 3.5 years of ministry. A wise man will go, I will prepare people when I leave. I'm going to prepare them so that when I leave, they know what to do. They know how to run with the ministry. They know how to run with the message. They know the right things. They're going to teach people right. They're going to do what I want them to do because I've taught them how to live in the dispensation of grace after I died and rose again. A foolish person, a foolish man would say, well, they've been hearing this message of the law for the last 2,000 years, so I'm just going to tell them the same thing that they've heard for the last 2,000 years. That's what a foolish person would do. It makes no sense. I believe Jesus was wise, and I believe that he was preparing the disciples, he was preparing us for grace, for living under grace. So when I look at these parables, I look at it with those eyes. So what I want to do is I want to put these two parables together, and I want to show you the similarities and the differences. And when you see the similarities and the differences, you'll see the complete picture of what Jesus was trying to get at. So let's start with the parable of the minas, and just to give you a little bit of difference, you get the parable of the minas. A mina is a big bag of gold. It's a huge bag of gold. A talent is a small bag of gold. And the reason why I prefer to talk about the parable of the big bags of gold and the little bags of gold is because people confuse the word talent with your innate abilities and the things that you're good at. There's a little bit, just a tiny little bit of truth to that, because in the parable of the talents, he says he gave them talents according to their abilities. So there's like a little bit of truth to that. But it does confuse a lot of people. So I just want to focus on, there were bags of gold. It was money. So let's look at the parable of the minas to begin with. Now, with the parable of the minas, there were 10 servants. So you got 10 servants. He gave them each 1 mina. So 1 mina, each servant gets 1. The master goes away and he says, do business until I come back. Now that sounds an awful lot of Jesus dying, rising again, ascending to the Father and saying, I'm going to come back. Sounds awfully like it's during the dispensation of grace. So Jesus says, okay, I'm going to go away, I'm going to come back. And when he comes back, he wants to see what has everyone done with the money he gave them. And one servant comes back and he says, I turned that 1 into 10. And Jesus says, well done. He gives him a badge of honor, a medal of honor, a commendation. You did a fantastic job. And then he says, I'm going to put you in charge of 10 cities. So he gives them a reward and responsibilities. Now the next one comes up and he says, Master, I turned the 1 talent into 5. And the master, he never says, well done. He never says it. What he does say is, I will put you in charge over 5 cities. You're going to be a ruler over 5 cities. So what you see is that the one who put in maximum effort got a commendation, a medal of honor, and a big reward. The one who put in half the effort, he never got the medal of honor. Yeah, that's the thing that never happened. He never got the commendation. He never got a well done. He did, however, get a reward, and the reward was proportional to the effort he put in. The person who got into trouble was the one who did absolutely nothing. Now, I titled this The Least You Could Do, and in the parable, and also in the parable of the talents, you find the master actually tells you what the least you can do is, and I'll get to that at the end. So, to summarize, the parable of the Minas says if everyone starts at the same place, the one who puts in the most effort gets the highest reward, and he gets a commendation. The one who only puts in half the effort, he still gets a reward, and it's proportional to the effort that was put in. The one who did nothing, that was bad. He got in trouble. So then let's move on to the parable of the talents. So, with the parable of the talents, you get different starting points. You see, some people say, well, I didn't have the same opportunities. I can't do the same things. I've got different issues I'm dealing with. And I don't have the same opportunities. I grew up poor. I grew up in a bad neighborhood. There's so many things. And it actually says he gave them bags of gold in accordance with their ability. Now, your ability would be your gifts and talents, yes, but it would also be things like your opportunities. What are you able to do? If you grew up in a small neighborhood, poor, and you don't have very many opportunities, well, okay. The parable of the talents actually addresses those issues, because each one had a different starting point in accordance with their ability. And the one who had 5, he turned it into 10. He got, well done, good and faithful servant. He got a medal of honor, a commendation. The one who started with 2 and turned it into 4, he had a different starting point, but proportionally he made the same as the person who started with 5 and got another 5. The reward he got was equal. Well done, good and faithful servant. He also got a commendation. He also got a medal of honor. You see, the person who buried it, he was the one who got into trouble again. So what does that tell me? That tells me different starting points, but putting in the same amount of effort gets you the same reward. So one started here and he doubled it. One started here and he doubled it. But they got the same reward. The reward was the same. Why? Same amount of effort, taking advantage of every opportunity that was given. Same amount of effort, taking advantage of every opportunity, got them the same reward, got them a commendation, got them a medal of honor. They all got the same. The person who got into trouble was the one who did absolutely nothing. Now, as I mentioned before, both of those parables tell you the least that you can do. See, in both those parables, right at the end, the master says this. He says, you could have taken my money and given it to a banker, and I could have earned interest. Now I want you to think about this for a moment. I'm in the States, and if I put money in a savings account, I get 1% interest. 1% interest. 1. Maybe 2 if it's a really good savings account. Do you know the 1% was good enough? If he had just gained that 1%, it would have been good enough. If he had literally done the bare minimum, given it to a banker, and sat on his rear end afterwards while it earned interest, it would have been okay. The fact that he did absolutely nothing, that was the problem. Now here's the truth. The truth is that God's heart is that he wants to reach out to people. He wants to help people. He wants to save people. He wants to rescue people. He wants to bring true peace and true joy into your hearts and lives. Now, in order to do that, he uses people. He wants you to get out and do something. Anything. But do something. Do something that shows love to your fellow man. Now, some people to make the most of every opportunity. And those will be rewarded. And they'll get a commendation. They'll get a Medal of Honor. And even if someone has very few opportunities, but they make the most of them, they could even get the same reward as Billy Graham or Reinhard Bonnke. It just, why not? If you make the most of every opportunity and you only get a few, you could get the same reward as someone who made the most of every opportunity and they had a lot. But you see, the way it works is God gives you an incentive. If you give 100% effort, you'll get a reward and a commendation. If you only give half, you'll still get a reward, but you won't get the commendation. And if it's proportional, then it means if you do the absolute minimum, it'll be okay. You won't get into trouble. But you'll get a tiny, tiny, tiny reward. The one who got into trouble was the one who did nothing. So I want you to think about that. God gives you incentives to do as much as you can. Make the most of every opportunity. Take every opportunity you can. He gives you an incentive to do that because there's a reward and a commendation associated with it, and the reward is dependent on how much effort you put in. But there's also a warning, don't be the guy who does nothing. He's the one who got into trouble, because the one who does nothing is the one who doesn't bother, who doesn't care about anyone else. Selfish, self-centered. He's the one who got into trouble. So I want to encourage you. You see, even starting out small, God has a way of taking something small and making it something great. If you think about the parable of the mustard seed, if you think about any seed, you get something small, you put it in the ground, it grows into a huge tree. God has a way of taking small things and making them huge. But you just have to start. Start somewhere. Start anywhere. Just do something. Just do something. Help someone. If you can't meet a physical need, you can pray with someone. If someone's feeling down, you can encourage them. If someone's feeling hurting, you can show that you care. Just do something, anything. Start. Start small. Start anywhere. Just start. Do something. So I want to encourage you with that. I want to encourage you to just get out there and do something. God bless you. Hey everybody, if you like this video, click on the link below, subscribe. Also, click on the notification button if you want to receive notifications every time I bring out another message.